and welcome to Gatekeepers. You're watching it on Jade's Tabletop Tavern. If you like tonight's content, please consider hitting that like button. If you really enjoyed tonight's content, please consider subscribing to the channel and the other channels listed in the video description. Tonight's topic is going to be trial and error, developing sessions and campaigns. And without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, my name is Jade, and I'm going to be the MC for the night. With me is, well, special guest, because we don't get him all that often, Max Liao from Legion of Myth. Welcome, sir.
Hello, Legionnaires. There we go. I have to say that every time. It's kind of like, was it Avenger and his... I'm not going to say it. You run a clean stream.
Fair enough.
No, happy to be here. Glad to be back. Got a week off of work. Gave me a little time to actually sit here because this is normally the night where I do all my preparations for Friday and Sunday. So I can't, jump on in here. So thanks for having me on, and I look forward to being somewhat useful tonight.
Awesome. Also joining us is Conall the Cigar DM. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I plan to be annoying and unuseful to people of older ages.
All right, speaking of slightly older ages, no offense, but here is Shadow. Welcome,
Howdy,
sir.
folks. Hope everybody's having a great day. I know I am. Living the dream.
Awesome.
How about you guys?
I'm not quite retired yet, but when I get there, I probably will too.
Hope I'm around to see that, man.
Well, I don't even know if I'll be around to see it. So... Also joining us this evening and rounding out our panel at 5 is going to be the Crafting Gamer. Welcome.
Good to be here.
All right, so how's everyone's week going?
We're hitting. I'm sorry. I was going to say we're hitting close to 100 around here, so but it could be worse at least.
We're going to be over 100 on this weekend, unfortunately. We've been having nice 80-degree temperatures, yeah.
If you're 100, that means I'll probably be like 130.
Yeah, in the fine state of Alabama.
Babalamistan.
Babalamistan?
No, hey, so my week's been great. I've had a week off, or this week I've had off of work. I turned 50 this week. That's right, 5-0, baby. I got 5-0 more to go, so don't think I'm going anywhere. Ha! And to prove that point, I made a fun video yesterday to somebody who needed to, have a fun video made. And other than that, it's been hanging out with a lot of people. I'm on a stream every day this week from Sunday through Friday. Saturday is the only day I've got off. I'm joining somebody, but I'm happy to be there. I'm happy to have the time to be here, join you guys, and apparently feed my cats, and the other streams I've been on. So I look forward to it. Now, yes, I'm a pig.
You're 5-0. All right.
That's not nice. I mean, what does it say about the other pigs?
Well, I think he's referring to the 5-0, as in the cops.
That's what it says. They're delicious.
Yeah, the others are pork. I'm still here. I'm too old to be eaten.
Ah, yes. So, are we ready to discuss, well, trial and error?
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. So sometimes we plot, sometimes we plan and scheme and devise grand ideas for our players to experience. Sometimes those player actions, or players' actions, plural sometimes, cause our initial ideas and to kind of crumble away, just to dust. So we've already discussed on Gatekeepers adversarial players and adversarial game masters, the do's and don'ts of adversarial play. Specifically, don't become an adversary to your respective others. So in this episode, it's talking about the trial and error of developing game sessions for your players and potentially even long-lasting campaigns. And this is actually an observation of a fellow game master that I know personally. I won't name names, but I know that for a while, a few months ago, they were really struggling with their players because everything the game master did and set up for the session, because it was flying by the seat of his pants because they had already gotten way off script from his original idea. And every time he set up a session, the players would constantly run the opposite direction and try to just completely derail everything he was trying to do. So this is kind of, I had this idea of this episode because, man, he was just struggling constantly. And he would come to me and ask, like, hey, what am I doing wrong? Like, here's what my players are doing. Like, I don't understand what's going on. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I want to make this into an episode, and hopefully I get some really great responses from some panelists who have been, playing the game for either, a few years to many years.
No, my experience doesn't count. I found that out yesterday.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So let's get into the first question. The first question is, let me first ask this. Have you ever had an idea for a campaign or session that you wanted to pose to your players, and your players completely flipped the script or avoided all potential plot hooks on purpose to pursue their own individual agendas? Have you ever had this happen? Being the guest of the night, I'm going to start with Max.
Would I be a really bad person if I said that was me?
Tell me about that then.
Way back in the day, this is actually during high school, and I'm gonna call somebody out on my Discord as well. Von Zark was a co-conspirator in this one, so those who are on my Discord can blame him as well. We just had personality conflicts. It's the high school stuff where you're trying to find yourself, hormones raging. Half our group were girls, so we were trying to impress the girls, yada yada. I remember specifically one game where we kept, this dude was playing a ranger and he had a pet wolf, and we kept trying to kill his pet wolf. The game master, who we didn't fully respect, wanted us to go in certain directions. He wasn't doing it necessarily railroady. He was trying to guide us there, but if we knew he wanted us to go west, we were going east. If he wanted us to go into the clouds, we were digging a hole. If he wanted us to fight, we'd sit down, whatever. It's just absolute ridiculousness. But again, I was 15, 16 years old and immature. And yeah, so that was me. In my games, it's probably because I saw that. I haven't had too much of that. As far as going off the rails, I don't really have players that do that sort of thing. They might do some weird stuff. Like, if we get to it, players wanting to burn down a village. Two villages were arguing with each other in order to make them. They had this great idea. Well, if we burn one down, they'll have to get along, right? It's like, wait, stop, nope. But no, I don't run into a lot of that. I think the only other one that I can think of that would be some semblance of that is I ran a high-level evil campaign. And I always remark, you may have heard me say this on some streams in the past, where it's like, why do the evil characters get along better than the good characters? Why are the evil characters getting along through the land and making deals and doing, they're almost like playing good characters. Don't worry, they weren't. They were killing stuff, but still, they're doing everything that you would want on the good characters minus the killings. Like, what's going on here? But other than that, and I think it's just the nature of the way I handle campaigns and I handle sessions. I'm very fly by the seat of the pants. In fact, you've helped convince me that I'm way more sandboxy than even I thought I was. I prepare certain things. I prepare certain, there's going to be an encounter. It's going to be an encounter with one of these things. If it happens, it'll be here, 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 but I can throw it in multiple locations. It doesn't just have to be in this one spot, so to speak. So there's very little other than not engaging at all that the characters can do, or the player characters can do, that would just go off script. Now, the one thing, and you said it, the one thing that will cause me to even possibly step in as a game master and say, we got to resolve this, is if a single player or the players themselves are more concerned about their internal, for lack of a better term, backstories or internal desires, spending more time trying to woo the barmaid, spending more time trying to figure out how to buy rope, spending more time trying to figure out how you can screw with the constable in the next city over than actually doing something productive, then we'll have a conversation. But I don't consider that necessarily, flipping anything on its script.
Okay. Let's see here. Let's go to Shadow. I'm going to go hit my corners first. But Shadow, how about you? Have you ever had players completely flip your script and go so far out into left field when you were expecting them to go right?
One.
Okay.
And it was kind of more of a joking thing. They knew they were already in a dungeon, and they knew I hadn't, I think they saw the map or something that I was working with, and they knew I hadn't finished this particular part of the map. And they're like, we're going there. We're going there. I'm like, what?
Was that good natured though? I have to ask. Was that good natured?
Yeah,
okay.
It really was. But I'm like, you know what? I'll wing it. And I'm not going to say that's where I began understanding the whole sandbox concept, because this was before the term even existed. But we had fun with it. I've been able to, just make up a dungeon on the spot. I used to do what Conall does, and that was get paid to dungeon master at a game hall back in the early 80s.
Grifter.
And we had the big dry erase marker, table, ping pong table full of grid, and I would just go nuts and just draw crap, as they're going, and just make it all up, because I never knew who was coming in, who was going to play, and I just really made it a point to not write all that much down. Literally, my prep include list of monsters, list of treasures, list of potential, NPC kind of encounters, that they might meet along the road or in the town, depending on, what they're doing. But, and I'll just, for example, monsters, I'll pick the monsters that I want them to bump into, because I want to sort of go through the monster manual and sort of try to get them to meet as many different things as opposed to their 17th encounter of orcs. After a certain point, you will probably never meet orcs again unless you're looking for them. I want to get into the aboleth, or the like I was talking earlier, the remoraz, the really crazy oddball monsters that nobody ever uses. For a D&D game or a fantasy game, I want them to encounter those really unique creatures, because those tend to sort of inspire crazier tactics and reactions, and oh my god, what the heck is this, and the trial and error of having to defeat this thing they've never heard of, or they don't remember from their perusing of the monster manuals. So I just really wing as much as possible. That way there is no issue of going off the rails. There are no rails to go off. Do whatever you want. I want to enjoy it as much as they do, and the randomness of everything, in a way, kind of it makes it fun for me, so that I don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of like, how many times have you run Keep on the Borderland? After like the 5th or 6th time, you're like, all right, it just gets boring. I don't want that. I want it to be, everything to be as new as possible for everybody, including myself.
So from there, I'm going to go to Conall. So Conall, I know you're a paid game master. I know that you work out of a shop. Have you ever had your players, know the module, or in case you are running a module, because I know you run, was it Rise of the Runelords a lot. Have you ever had your players who knew the module better than you decide to go, hey, I'm going to go this way just to see what he does?
I do run this module a lot. I have told it enough where there's that great line from Neverending Story: just because you read the book once doesn't mean it's the same book the second time. And I can change it. I can do things to it. But yeah, I don't know. It was like early game, and I killed the entire party. And I wasn't expecting to kill the entire party, because I've never killed the entire party before running this module up until that point. And I'm thinking to myself, it's like, okay, everybody wakes up in a dark room, and they meet a deity, but the deity wasn't going to help them out of the Deadlands. They had to find their own way out of the Deadlands to get back to their body. Kind of the old Hades, the story about Hades, the guy going down to Hades to get his love. She turns around. I ripped from that to make it work for the campaign. And so it was completely off of it fell off. It was just completely fell off when the party died. I've also been in campaign where the DM looked at the entire group and said, I'm kind of tired of the story. Do you mind if we go a different direction? You guys don't have to make new characters, but I'm going to go a different direction with it. And as much as I would care for the DM, I thought that was a really interesting idea, even as a DM, that sometimes the story you're telling is just not working for whatever reason. You got players that are losing interest. You're losing interest, God forbid. And you just need to pivot in some kind of direction to make the story, the game, and your players more content in what you're trying to do.
To answer L, that was the Rise of the Rune Lords adventure path that Conall held up.
So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. Interesting scenario. I will try to pull from that as I can. How about you, Crafting? Have you ever had your players... I know you've had your players completely flip your script.
Oh, yeah. And
yeah, go for it.
If you're not... unless you want a brand new example, but the last week's example is the most egregious and the hardest I had ever worked to make sort of a plan, because I was, for lack of a better term, raised sandbox. I very much do what Max does now from the very beginning, which is create a set of things that they can run into and then roll to see if they even run into them and what they do if they do. I mean, like, around here somewhere, I have a box full of literally percentiled creatures that, like, oh, if I roll this one and get this percentile, they run into this one. Or groups of creatures. But that was the whole... Well, Max didn't hear it, and some people may not, and you're not saying no, so I'm going to go ahead and repeat this story.
Go for it.
Which is, I made a story, and was a story, where an alien crashed on Earth full of other dangerous aliens. The player's job was to find this one good alien, help him collect all the others, or kill them if necessary, and get them back into space. The players, the two most egregious things they did was, one, they beat the ever-living shit out of the good alien and sold him to the government. This was Heroes Unlimited, so I have to agree with Shadow. There is a little bit of credence there, but not much for what's supposed to be a good alignment. And then
the government can get more use out of them, right?
Yeah, that is true. And then what the really and then a real egregious thing they did. I mean, they knew well, excuse me. There was an alien among all those. There was a demon alien who had enough intelligence to take over a corporate building or a corporate business. The corporate business hired them to look for the good alien and catch him. However, they caught him after they had discovered that the corporation was led by the demon alien. And after dealing with the good alien, they decided to deal with the demon alien by saying everybody in the building, since they follow that demon alien, they all have to be evil. There is no other explanation. So we're just going to bomb the building and bring down a 100-story building on top of this creature.
I think that's where Kevin Simbita would say, consequences.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd like to piggyback on that because he jogged my memory for one where players did... I wouldn't say they flipped the script, but they certainly let me know they did not like the adventure. So at some point, it had to be late 90s, maybe it was around year 2000, I ran a game, and it was AD&D 2nd edition. And one of the elements I put in the game was a crashed spaceship. Now, there were no aliens, at least I don't think... Yeah, there were no aliens. I actually used dungeon creatures inside the spaceship. But I described it as very similar to what you'd have found in Aliens, the second movie, going through the tunnels with a little more dungeon-esque environment, more, fungus and less just goo. And man, one of the players was just not having. I hate sci-fi in my games. This is supposed to be fantasy. And he was just the thing was, it was a crashed spaceship, and this is why I'm pretty sure I didn't have any aliens, because I was always sitting there going, why is he being so adamant about this? Why is he being so, like, there are no laser guns. There was a little bit of technology like flashing, flickering, but they couldn't utilize it, and there's nothing that's going to be utilized against them. They were basically in a dungeon crawl. I just made it in a unique area. And man, this guy was like, I hate sci-fi in my games. Don't mix sci-fi and fantasy. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, that there were lasers in the original D&D, right? Like, the whole weird fantasy kind of thing. He just was not having it. He was just, what's that?
Expedition to the Barrier Peaks.
Okay.
One of the F series dungeons.
I don't know all the modules because I didn't get modules, but yeah, there is precedent for it. But again, without even using that, and he was just going every step of his way. We ended up not completing that one because he was such a downer that the other players are like, you know what? If he's just going to sit here, and he was a roommate, so it's not like I could I could kick him out of the game, but that would have, he just would have sat down, turned the TV up really loudly, and and ruined the game that way. So I ended up switching from that one to running a TMNT game after that. But still, I sometimes,
Okay. So
Hey,
actually, that was going to be. Go for it.
Crafting. You there?
Yeah, I'm still there. Sorry, I was mixing paint.
Hey, were you a big fan of the Jim Lee Wildcat comic?
Sounds familiar, but overall probably not. I didn't.
Okay.
My main experience with comics ended up being the Alien versus Predator and other mostly Alien and Predator comics.
Okay, just curious.
Okay, so my next question actually had to do with what did given you've given me your personal experience with this topic, and you've kind of explained the scenario to an extent, and you explained what your players did. What did you do to counter your players or to enable them to get back onto track or point them in a direction more conducive to continual play? Like, did you try to point them back to, hey, the thing that's really going to happen is over that way? Did you try that? And if you did, can you explain how you did it? I'm going to start with Conall on this one. You're muted, sir.
Sorry, I was trying to be a good person and mute myself. When the players died, thankfully it was adults and not kids. Kids is a whole different subject. But with adults, I kind of just fell back to the classics. Like I said, they were all down. They all went to the land of the dead, and not so much a big deity, a small G, not big G, came and saw them. And he's like, well, I'm going to give you the opportunity to go back to the land of the living, but I'm not going to do it. And went to use Dante's Inferno with Giles, the one who led Dante through the Inferno. I think I'm messing up his name, but whatever. I kind of gave him a guide in a sense. And I didn't hold their hands, and I didn't pull any punches. But I gave them the tools to be able to get back to the land of the living and continue the campaign. It maybe cost me about 2-3 sessions to get them back where I needed them to be. But by doing that, in my opinion, I know Shadow's like, once you're dead, you're dead. But in my opinion, it gave the players trust in me, saying, I'm not going to screw you over. I will give you guys, I'll give you a fair shake and let you continue playing these characters. Because I also gave them, like, if any of you guys want to play new characters because they're dead, more power to you. But if you want to play the continued characters, we're going to have to do, this is what we're going to have to do.
And so that what you're saying right now actually came up with the game master who actually kind of spawned this topic. They too had a scenario where their players made really bad choices. And I'm not saying the game master made bad choices. The players, based on everything I know, made really bad choices, and they all died. So the game master, like you, decided, okay, well, here's their get out of death free card. They only get one. Because I still want to have a game next week. It was his thinking. So he sent them all to the underworld, met with Karan, the boatman, and they were all given basically a mission from the god of death. Like, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. Because if you don't do these things, really bad stuff is going to happen, and I will have to personally get involved. And I don't like getting involved. And that's what he did. And then, well, trial and error, he put them in a new situation, and they chose violence and death again. It seems like the players didn't learn anything.
It was when the TPK happened. It was just bad rolls there. They weren't screwing around. They were actually just playing their characters, and it was a series of bad rolls. And plus, the area in the module where they're at, it's a killer. It's an absolute killer because how Pathfinder uses haunts. I had a guy jump out of a third-story building down a 600-foot cliff just because he couldn't make the will save for the haunt. I mean, it just bad rolls.
And then you splat and die.
That's what happened.
You splat and die, and you make a new character.
Yep.
Okay, so Shadow, you had the example of your players knew that your map wasn't drawn in one particular direction, or they seemed to have figured it out.
Yeah, they saw the map.
What did you do to basically fill out the night's content? Like, how did you plan from that moment, the moment they're like, hey, we're going to go this direction, not the direction you planned? What did you do?
I just, like I said, I just winged it, knowing, for example, that it was the area had been excavated by X, let's say. Okay, whatever it was, orcs, goblins,
Sure.
troglodytes, whatever. I just extrapolated from what I already knew was going to happen over here, and pulled some elements. I think I pulled. If you guys remember the module B1, Expedition in the Unknown, it's literally the very first module, I think, or at least B1 was. The twin brother to Expedition to the Barrier Peak, and it had some really interesting things like the magic mouth and the pools of liquid, and if you drink them, different random crap happen. I just pulled stuff from other modules and just dropped them in because I figured at least one or two players had gone through that particular dungeon, because it was really very simple dungeon. It had a lot of, it was like the only dungeon module that they made that had empty rooms and let you put the stuff in from a list of 100 monsters and 100 random treasures. It's like so you can just pencil it in. And I just pulled stuff from the actual written rooms that were in that, and I think I might have pulled like one of my favorites is anytime I can yank anything from Land of the Lost, just because it's so corny and kooky, but at the same time, who doesn't want to fight some flea stack or get a hold of those gems that you put two together and then they explode, that kind of thing. I think the thing I pulled was the actual Enoch board of crystals, that if you move the crystals in a certain way, it opens up a portal kind of thing. And they decided to not go in the portal because they wanted to clear the dungeon, go figure. But yeah, just we've all, unless it's your first go around, we've all got all kinds of crap we can yank stuff from. Just know that that's what you're going to do. Either you're going to do it when you're writing it down, or do it right there, in the moment. Just like pull something out that's just, interesting at the very least. Don't try to just, do the traditional nuts and bolt crap. Try to pull some interesting stuff from, hopefully, not overly cliche sources like I did, but things that, you think they will enjoy and that you'll enjoy seeing them try to figure out, and just get used to it.
Okay. Going back to crafting. Crafting. So you had the scenario and you kind of explained what you did. Can you expand on that? Like they turned the alien over to the government, and then they were working with the demon, right?
Yes.
Okay. what was the result of that? Like, how did that pan out for the game and or for you as the game master? Like, what did you do in that scenario?
Admittedly, at first, I panicked. I didn't really know what to do. At the time, I've said this before, at the time, I did not have a very big set of cojones for such things, so I didn't do what I should have in a couple of cases, but in this case, they brought down an entire building. There is no way they're getting away with that, no matter how prevalent they are as superheroes. So that campaign ended up being ended when they said they weren't playing anymore because the government was now hunting them, and they thought that was unfair.
What a bunch of pussy players. Sorry.
Oh, I agree. I no longer play with that group, and I am glad I don't.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like what you did, the consequences portion of what you did, basically made them all not want to play anymore.
Yeah. At the time, I had a very bad habit of, well, get away with whatever you want. When I say Sparkle Troll when I was younger, I mean it. Players pretty much got away with anything, did whatever they wanted.
Okay.
That was one of the first times I really put my foot down.
And so, actually, to caveat off of that, the game master that kind of spawned this topic, he had a session a couple weeks ago that his players, if I remember, he was running a module, and his players decided that they were going to attack the helpful NPC that was supposed to give them their next mission. Well, that NPC was, I think, 8 levels above the party, and the NPC almost wasted them. They ended up getting away and fleeing through smoke screens and whatnot back to town. And then he actually asked me personally, like, hey, here's the scenario. Here's what happened. I'm like, okay, first and foremost, actions have consequences. You can either A, give them a mulligan and say, hey, here's where you went wrong. And, we can redo this day. Or 2, you all make new characters because actions have consequences. He blended the 2 responses into a third response. They're all now working pro bono for the town because the entire town showed up with, not just my suggestion, but he actually even took it further. The town surrounded where they were hiding out at, with rows and rows and rows of soldiers in lockstep with one another, like 2 deep shield wall with spears, swords, archers, and mages, all ready to just blast them to, atomize the player characters. So I'm kind of happy that to hear that the response was, oh, okay, yeah, we know we screwed up. How do we fix this? So Max, how about you? Your players, it's been a hot minute since you gave me your example, so you might have to remind me.
Which one do you want me to talk about? I gave a few.
Which one? So which one did you have the most? I don't want to say egregious, but the most, the least liked response, like your response to the players. Like, let's talk about that one, because that seems to be, I think, the one that most new game masters will likely give in response to players flipping their script. Newer game masters might not have the assuredness to run a game, and when players flip their script, things go south very quickly for that group.
So I'll talk to you about a failure of mine, because I think we can get a double whammy here. What I did wrong, and what the consequence, what I learned from that. And we'll go with the one where I wasn't joking. They wanted to burn down the village. They couldn't figure out. They failed a few rolls, and they're getting frustrated. Instead of continuing to try or doing good work, so to speak, they just wanted an instant result. And so instead of looking at these 2 villages that were at odds, they were sharing water basically, and they wanted to, we own it, no you own it, no, or I'm sorry, we own it, no we own it, no we own it. So they said, well, they're gonna have to share water because one's got food, one's got vegetables, and one's got meat. So they're gonna have to combine if we burn down the village, right? They'll have to come together and work together. I stopped the game. I should not have done that. But I stopped the game. And I said, okay, what's going on here? And they're like, well, we can't think of anything else. And I'm like, you guys, there are other options here. I'm not going to let you burn down the village. Again, wrong answer. I should have let them burn down the village, and I should have let them suffer the consequences for it. Consequences are important. You can have so many, and this is what's really funny about that is I've already ran multiple adventures which were consequences to the nonsense that they had done. This time, I failed to do that. I shut down the game, and I said, no, you're going to go back and you're going to rethink this, and you're going to basically not do what you're planning on doing and think of something else. I don't remember all the ins and outs after that, but I'm pretty embarrassed about how I handled that one because, again, I should have gone consequences. The thing was with me is I didn't want to. They were on a path that was leading them to an end, and it wasn't a railroad, but it was definitely a path that I was excited for them to get to the end to, where they'd get these group magical items and some cool stuff. You can guess what game it was. Earth Dawn. I was running Blades, and this was a side. This wasn't part of Blades, but this was a side thing that we were doing that was related to Blades. I think it was another printed module, as a matter of fact, if I remember correct. But anyway, and I didn't want to ruin that. I didn't want that ruined. They were so close; they're getting there, and instead of saying, "Well, you done effed it up," I stopped the game. And the lesson I learned from that, the lesson they learned from that is one: you're supposed to be heroes in Earth Dawn, and I'm not going to put up with that. Okay. You developed your characters to be heroes, and just because you're frustrated doesn't mean you burn down the damn village. Lesson I learned from that is that's not. God damn it! Hey, sorry, I have a cat. Thank you. My apologies for that. Apparently So what I learned from that was I gotta let the consequences happen. I can't just. I can't stop the game. It's not fair to the players. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to the verisimilitude of the setting. I've got to let that happen. The other one is he didn't come in. He jumped back up. The other one was the evil campaign, where what is that? The evil campaign.
I think I know what it is.
Okay. The evil campaign taught me that I'm not going to allow PvP in my games anymore. That actually was the last time that the time before, because I used to let players fight. It used to be really annoying, but I would let it happen because it was them playing their characters, and maybe they'll resolve it. I absolutely love the idea of Gimli and Legolas starting at odds but growing together. I'm a Dragonlance fan, so I kind of like the Raceland thing. In a novel, it doesn't work so well at a table, but conceptually, I like that. But when I learned that when they're playing the evil characters and actually getting along and planning better and plotting better and doing things with more it's with more intelligence, because they knew that they were evil. One was we had a lich, we had a drow, we had a vampire. I think one was a Draco Lich. I don't know. There was some crazy high level, evil stuff. And they were, instead of fighting each other, which is what I thought was going to happen. Oh, this is going to turn to arena combat pretty quickly. No, they plotted together and they did a damn good job of it. It's like, okay, this tells me that in my normal games, I'm just going to upfront say, look, if you make a character that's at odds, I'm going to go mess with the paladin constantly. No, get out. Or I'm going to let the paladin resolve that quick, fast, in a hurry. It's like, I don't want the players at odds. I want them focused on what's going on in the world. I want them focused on what's happening around them. I want them to work together because there's supposed to be a troop, a group, a team, whatever you want to call it. And so I enforce that at character creation. I don't care what your rationale is. I don't care what the background of your character is or anything else. The rule I have is that you get along, at least in passing, at least grudgingly get along with everybody in the group. You might think that Jade smells, but you know what? He's your smelly guy and you're going to protect him.
Shadow, you had a question.
Yeah, Max, when you said you stopped it, did you mean that you ended the campaign right then and there?
No. I put the session in timeout, if you want to call it that, and I stopped them from I did not allow them to perform that action. And
then they went on some other.
We had about a half hour, maybe hour long discussion because they were frustrated. They're absolutely frustrated because, and again, they'd failed some roles and they didn't see any other out. But there's nothing to say that just because you know, it's like wooing. It's like all the movies where you're trying to woo the girl, but you're doing it through the man, right, or through the father, right? It's like, I want to date your daughter, like, you know, some medieval stuff where it's like, well, you're not good enough for her. Well, I'm going to prove you wrong. Well, they didn't do the I'm going to prove you wrong part. They're like, okay, like, you know, what's up, Conall?
It's thinking about the personality problem with good characters versus evil characters, and sometimes that right there will flip. You know, staying on topic, flip the script. You think it should go one direction, it goes the other. Me and Jade were in a campaign years ago where we all started off evil, and by the end of the campaign, we're all good.
Well, sorry, but you can't do that with a lich, a
right,
vampire.
Right. It's like one of the players rage quit because I wanted to eat the tentacles off of a mind flare because I was thinking calamari. And after he left, the party just kind of went good. It was like, it wasn't overnight good, but within like 5 sessions, if there was alignment shifts, there's starting to happen.
We were making better choices, but I wouldn't necessarily say we were the good guys. We were still.
Well, it's funny you say that.
Not great guys.
Because that's what the group told me. The group told me is like, well, we know we're evil, and we know that they'll send high-level people, because it's a high-level campaign, that you're going to send high-level people after us. The last thing we need is like 3 clerics and 2 paladins, you know, and their entire entourage is coming after us. So we're going to lay low a little bit. I'm like, why couldn't you do this as good players?
Oh, and everybody needs to drink twice because our guest said Earth Dawn not once, but twice.
Hey, I played Earth Dawn a couple weeks ago, so.
I'll have to talk to you about that.
It was interesting. Anyway, so
just because you're not a good, just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy.
Right. All right. So, Disney quotes aside, so looking back at your prior experience, good, bad, indifferent, what do you do now that is different from that scenario? Like, Max, you've already said that you learned from that scenario of what not to do. So how do you handle those things now besides just the consequences? Do you do anything else differently to prevent that scenario from coming up in the first place?
Well, I don't think you can fully prevent it because I don't like telling players how to play the characters. However, sure. I will say again, at character creation, session 0, whatever you want to call it, I do lay down some ground rules in terms of what the expectation is. And the expectation is, one, you're not suicidal. Another one is that you, as characters, you have to at least grudgingly get along. So usually once that's done, they figure out ways of doing it, because they want to play those characters and they want to play with those ideas, and I'm going to let them have it. The consequences thing, yeah, that's one aspect of it. But the reason why I shied away from consequences a lot, no, not a lot, in that case or in a couple other cases that might be similar to that, is because I didn't want to do the work that'd be like, okay, how am I going to hunt them down? They killed a village, which means it's not going to be like 2 guys, like 5 mercenaries just coming after them. They had a legend. Oh, so using Earth Dawn, this was Earth Dawn. They had a legend. They were known. They weren't really high circle, but they were powerful enough there where you'd have to send some pretty good stuff after them. I'm like, I don't want to set that up. Like, I don't want to deal with that because I can't just pull out 2 creatures and, say, okay, I got 2 sword masters in here trying to beat you up. And that was a little bit of laziness on my part there. And so that's how I looked at it. I won't do that now. Now I'll be like, okay, I've actually done this. One of the things I have done in a game when the players have just been like, we'll call it flipping the script. Like, oh, I was not prepared. You picked the one thing I was not prepared for. I have to end the session now. Like, we'll get to, we can move a little further, but I can't do anything else to challenge you today because everything that would have been a challenge is now your buddy, and everything that was your buddy is now a challenge. I have to actually take the time for next week to just get that script flipped, so to speak. And yeah, could I wing it? Could I, live on a prayer, so to speak, with that? I could, but I don't like doing that. I want to give them something meaningful. If you're going to switch teams, yeah, dispatch the Royal Guard, right. Well, again, where they were, I mean, there are a lot of things that were involved in that. It would have taken an airship. These guys probably would have downed that airship. I would have had to deal with that. But But no, but you're absolutely right. Dispatch to the Royal Guard would have been one. But you switched teams. You were supposed to be fighting for this guy. You were doing all the right stuff, and then you saw, we're gonna lose. Let's go over here. Well, I wasn't prepared for that. I was prepared for you to fight him. I was prepared for you to run away from him. I was prepared for you to ignore him, sneak by him, whatever. I wasn't prepared for you to join him. So with that in mind, we're going to end it today, and I'll be back next week to make sure that we've got this ready to go. And again, there's still be consequences for that. And hopefully I wasn't talking around it. The problem is, and I mentioned this to Jade beforehand, is this is kind of a weak topic for me because I really haven't dealt a lot with this in like, oh my God, you've ruined my game. Like I haven't run into that. I've had good players or I rolled with the punches.
But so you still have learned things from those kinds of scenarios.
Consequences, man.
And that's what I'm trying to extrapolate is I'm trying to extract out of all of you, like all of the things you've learned from these kinds of scenarios that have come up at your own tables or even at like other tables. Just being a passive observer, like I want those experiences and I want that information because ultimately that will help other people who see this later to either incorporate some of those things into their own methods or help them develop the tools or make the tools for their toolbox for later plays.
Well, I'll tell you, it's jaded me in some regard. You guys have probably heard me talk about this on streams where I say I don't trust players. And there's some truth to that. It's not adversarial, but I don't trust players. Oh my God, I cannot believe I forgot about this one. The worst experience ever. You want to talk about flipping a script? The module Child's Play. I've mentioned this 100 times. I can't believe I didn't bring this up. The module Child's Play is an AD&D second edition module, and I don't really do modules, but it's like, okay, I'll do one. This one looks interesting. And when they found out what module I was running, a guy went and read the book and gave away the super secret part of it. So yeah, I mean, I shut down that game too, but I was young. I was young for that one because there's nothing I could do. You ruined the entire adventure. You didn't guess. You knew. You read it, and you laughed about it. Ha ha! I know what the answer is. It's this. Da 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 da. And I mean, I wasn't good enough at that point to say, okay, how can I twist this? How can I make that knowledge that he knows be a red herring? I was young. I couldn't do it at that point. So. I always change creatures. Okay, always is too strong a word. I often change creatures from how they are in the book. Session 0, I lay down what my expectations are. I mean, I don't have too many list of rules, but I lay down what the expectations are of the game, and then as I'm running it, I'm not going to say I'm 3 steps ahead of players. Look, there's 6 of them sitting at the table, and their combined intelligence is definitely going to be more than mine. So, what I'll do is I'll have things. If this goes off the rails at this point, how am I going to react to it? And unless it's something really weird, like again joining the other team, which I wasn't expecting. I make sure that I'm capable of dealing with that. And I'll tell you this: here's a little secret sauce. Do it organically. But if you're ever in doubt, throw a monster in the way because that'll suck up some time and give you time to think about what you're doing next.
Fair enough. So I'm going to go down to Shadow. You had a question?
I get a question.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a question, but okay, I'll pose it in the form of a question. Wouldn't you consider a player buying the module that you are running to be cheating? And if a player is caught cheating, would you not just eject them from the group from this?
So this was that same high school group that I told you about where I was.
No, I mean from.
This was something we were kind of known to do to each other, not by the modules because we were poor. I don't know if I'd consider it cheating because it's free market, man. I mean, right now, if you were to run the Alien RPG game, how do you know that I haven't read that introductory adventure? So my take now is like I've mentioned this a lot. I struggle with modules because I hate changing modules. Yet I know full well 100% you have to change modules. But I hate changing modules. But I know you see the circular thing that's going on here. So I struggle with them because of that.
Because I've had it happen to me as well, and I literally laid down the law. This is what I call cheating. It's the 50-year-old me would say that, yeah. The 15-year-old me, that was my friend circle, and we were the only gamer nerds.
Right.
Right. Just for the folks out there,
Yeah, absolutely.
If you are thinking about running a module, make sure your players don't know it, and if so, then say, okay, well, we're gonna have to do something else because that ruins the fun for a lot of other people as well.
Well, there's actually a point that you're making there that I wrote down here because I wanted to say it to Crafting Gamer because of the point that he made. And I've actually seen players. This happened at War Games West when I lived in Albuquerque. I've seen players choose a dungeon master simply because they knew the dungeon master was a pushover that was going to capitulate, and they could browbeat the dungeon master into doing what they wanted. And the one time he put his foot down, they quit and then ended up ostracizing him as both a player and a dungeon master because he was new, he was somewhat passive. They could convince him of anything. He's like, okay, yeah, your character didn't die. Okay, you know what, you can have that magic item. Okay, yada yada yada. So they loved it up until he's like, you know what, this is ridiculous. No, and so they ended up kicking him out of his friend circle. They only used him as a dungeon master. Somebody said that, oh, dungeon masters all have a presence about them. They're all experienced. You know who I'm talking about when I say that. No, that's not true. I've actually seen people pick dungeon masters for the express purpose of manipulating them so that they can have characters that were level up. What are you going to do with that character? I mean, take it to another game. And what was the point of that? I don't know, but I have absolutely seen that happen.
Mm-hmm. I don't think really quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I just kind of want to defend. I'm not trying to defend modules, and yes, I have ran into a few people that have played Rise of Rule Lord or any other module I've done. But as a DM, just because they've played it before, as I said earlier from that quote from Neverending Story 2, just because you read the book doesn't mean it's the same book the second time. And if a DM has enough time and creativity, he could change the script in the campaign.
Oh, yeah.
The beginning, the middle, and the end the beginning and the end are just going to be slightly the same. There's just no way around that. I
agree with you 100%. You shouldn't have any clue what the end is going to be.
There's always going to be the big bad at the end. Unfortunately,
no, there isn't.
Well,
this isn't a video game.
In most adventure paths written by like Paizo or such, you know where the game is supposed to be going. Paizo adventure paths are railroads. There's no getting around it. They are railroads.
Right.
I did the Starfinder one, so yeah, I get it. And I'm not busting Conall's balls. What I'm saying is he's already presenting out there saying make these changes. Well, Conall, make the change to the end as well.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it's like I'm running Pathfinder through I'm going to catch somehow, but through the 5th edition.
Would you like to throw Fate in there as well and really piss everybody off?
No. But I find that just because I'm using the 5e engine, I can now use beholders. I can use dungeon. WotC whatever one.
You could use beholders in Pathfinder. Just call them big eyeballs creatures.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll take some of the monsters out for different monsters, but just because you're running the module doesn't mean it has to be the same module that you ran.
That is true. I was 15 years old at that time. So
just because you're running one game engine doesn't mean you can't pull monsters in from a different game engine entirely. Right. It just takes a little bit of extra effort. The person I haven't gotten to lately on this one is crafting. So crafting, looking back at your experience with what your Heroes Unlimited game did, what do you do? What did you learn from that experience? And how do you prepare your sessions now, knowing that those kinds of players exist and they might sit at your table again someday?
Well, the initial consequences of what happened was pretty much what Max described. When I put my foot down and said they're being chased by the government, I pretty much lost the group instantly.
Guys are just some shitty players, man. God.
Yeah. As for what I would do differently now, not actually much, because what I had planned out was the ship crashed. They get hired to find the alien. They find the alien. What they were supposed to do is help the alien. And then the little adventure itself was over, and we move on to the next one. That was supposed to take place over 5 or 6 games or something like that. It ended up taking a little bit longer, but still, it was meant to be very sandboxy because that's the way I am to begin with. And in the end, I wouldn't change much. I would just be a little more prepared for chaos.
Okay. Sorry, thinking. I'm trying to caveat off of that. So being prepared for chaos, like how can you prepare for chaos? Like what are some of the things you do as a game master to kind of get ahead of your players to a certain extent? And I don't mean like to put them on rails or anything like that, but to kind of think a little further ahead of them to be able to prepare a session, knowing that your players could potentially go pairing off in some rando direction.
I don't know how many people are going to be upset. I don't know how many people are going to agree, but I tend to be like, well, I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm not going to presume to know what's going to happen. I'm going to see what happens, and well, the story will take a turn depending on what happens. Like, for example, something that I can say actually, because I did DM for another group afterwards, was one of the players decided to try to tame a creature. There is no real creature tamers in Palladium, not that I'm aware of anyway. Like maybe there's some of the splat books, but in the main book there isn't. So I wasn't prepared for that at all. So I decided, okay, I know a little bit about animal handling. He wanted to do, interestingly enough, a raptor. So his suggestion, what?
I got questions.
Just raptors in any I'm sorry, dinosaurs in any age where there are living, breathing, bipedal, sentient beings is just bizarre to me. But go ahead.
Hey, trans-dimensional TMNT, baby.
Well, this was Palladium Fantasy at the time.
Okay.
So he kind of looked to me for suggestion, but the best I could suggest to him was, given the fact it's a predator, beat the crap out of it, heal it, beat the crap out of it, and heal it until it's submitted to you.
That's called Stockholm Syndrome. That's not how you train animals.
I'm not an animal trainer, and he wasn't either. So we're just like, we'll just make it submit.
Are you Irish? What the hell?
I'm sure you'll be getting a call from PETA later.
Well, I have a little bit of Irish in me, so don't be going around, or else I'll give you a big old Glasgow kiss.
It's not called breaking horses for nothing.
Now, I'm going to kind of back up what I said. I don't typically care for dinosaurs in games where players are bipedal or, of the modern races. There are a few exceptions to that, and that is when we go like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Lost World. When the game is that, or riffs, or goes, if it's a sci-fi game and it goes to a world that's still in its prehistory stages or Jurassic periods, then yeah, sure, I'll consider it. But typically, I don't care for dinos.
So what if I played a mutant dinosaur next to a human?
One, we'd have to be playing I'd be having to run sci-fi for first off. And you would have to be coming from a completely different planet, or it's a time travel game.
Yeah. There was dinosaurs in Paizo,
which I love time travel. So
Paizo and the world for a Pathfinder.
Anyway, so that's completely off the rails, which is somewhat related.
That was my very first Palladium book of all time, there, Max.
So, let's see here.
Can I get cracking this question?
Yeah, sure. So, given your experience with Rise of the Rune Lords and the TPK, like looking back on that, how do you prepare your sessions now, with the potential that you could wipe the party and have literally nothing to do the next week? How do you prepare for that?
Well, I was actually going to flip the script on you for examples, if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah, flip my script. Go for it.
Couple about 2 or 3 weeks ago on Max's channel, I talked about running the Dresden Files.
Sure.
And I had a player that just went sideways and killed a bunch of people with magic. Well, you know the Dresden Files as well as I do. And if the White Court finds out, they send out warrants, ...
Whoa. Did you say White Court?
Council.
White Council.
White Council, not court.
Or, yeah,
You're
that's a
right.
whole different creature.
I'm a super fan of Dresden. You better.
Yeah,
you
I
best
know.
get it
I
right.
messed up. See, anyways, White Council sends out their security group. Well, he didn't think the guy was, thinking about it after Max show. The guy was just trying to be chaotic to screw with my game.
Okay.
And he didn't like the way it was going. So he decided to do that. Well, the problem is he did it and he thought there was going to be no consequences. I told him, before the game, session 0, as you put it, if you play a wizard, this is going to happen. And I did it. And there was, then I had to prepare. I wasn't ready to, but I had to prepare the White Council to show up and do a hearing, a trial. And the character just lost his ever-loving mind and quit the game.
You mean the player lost his mind?
Yeah, the player lost his mind.
Okay.
And left the rage quit and left the game. So I did
you're
the
probably
rest,
better off.
I ran the trial. The player lost his head because 10-1. That's going to happen in that series. And the rest of the group actually loved the fact that I went into that much detail, and I didn't have problems with any of the other magic users. They all these are the laws that you have to live by, and the rest of the game went smoothly. I mean, chopping somebody's head off is kind of rough, but they all kind of just fell. I don't want to say fell in line, but fell in line.
Okay. Yes, Shadow.
Regarding the issue I had with the map, I did learn from that handing out
and to shoot damn maps.
Yep, I started handing out maps all the freaking time. Here's a map to this location. Here's a partial map of the dungeon. Here's floor plans, etc. That way, not only do we, sort of dispense with the miniatures and stuff like that more often, because everybody can theater the mind it, a little bit better, because despite what you see on the channel, I don't really use a lot of miniatures in my gaming. It's mostly for war games and miniature games. But handing out maps, I even noticed in speaking of Avenger earlier, one of the books I was reading of his, he literally has the player's map of, I think it's a starport, and then the real map of the starport, with everything written on it, so you can photocopy it and hand it out, and they can start making their own notes on it and do things like that. It's a real big help. In addition to any other handouts you want to make, we could go on about handouts, but freaking love them, use them. Everybody will.
Do you put effort into your handouts?
Oh, absolutely.
Like I've coffee stained and milk stained mine before to age them, and
believe it or not, I literally once put my own blood on one of them.
Okay, now you're just getting creepy, dude.
But,
somebody sacrificed. Well, that explains that, because somebody got a hold of that and sacrificed it to something.
No, just because they died holding the map, and now you've got it. You found it in their backpack, or clutched in their hand, or this drunken sailor wants to sell you this map. Whatever. Just all the when I played Top Secret, I went all out. I took magazines.
God, that's a game I did.
Took out, cut out pictures from magazines, made dossiers. Here's the guy you're supposed to, take out. Or one of the famous ones I found, this article on a plane crash with all kinds of photos. They loved it. So hand out.
Top Secret. God, I haven't heard that game since like the 80s.
I've got everything Top Secret ever made. I can't wait to play it one of these days. Just gonna have to play it in the 80s, because today, no. Don't want to get caught up in any of that.
Ransom notes written like in magazine letters back in the 80s.
I did.
I've done that.
Oh my God. I did that. I went and took an actual newspaper and cut out.
That shit takes time, by the way.
But it's fun, and the players just they've got to. They start compiling actual folders. It's not just a character sheet folded up or just stuffed in their their player's handbook, they start developing folders with all this stuff. It's so much fun.
And that kind of hits home on a different point, especially for preparing your sessions or your long running campaigns. Producing maps, producing VTTs if that's your route, getting the assets for that, or even producing your own like handouts by hand. These are all things that can only help you to an extent. Now, there are moments where I have made those handouts. I've done the whole like burnt edges on parchment type paper. I've gone to the nines before, and one of the biggest slaps in the faces to me was when my players go, "Hey, we're not feeling it tonight. Can we just do board games?"
Yeah. You will never hear
that's happened
those
to me.
words coming out of my mouth.
It's good that I don't have a baseball bat within reach.
No shit.
But it has happened to me, and there are weeks where even I, as the game master, have been like, "Hey guys, I'm really not feeling it this week." Oh, good Lord. I've said that 24 hours in advance, like, "Hey guys, I'm not feeling it this week. I can try, but I'm not going to be putting out grade A material. It's going to be like C or D grade material. Are you sure you want to?"
We need to talk. You never tell that to your players. You just show up, and I've been hung over the worst sessions ever, and the players like, "Dude, that was great." What? I was barely thinking. I was just saying things and stuff, and
I've had the same scenario. As a matter of fact, we have something in town. They haven't had it for the past couple of years, called Beer Fest. A bunch of local brewers come into town, and you go around, and you've got tickets and whatnot. And you try beers from all over. Well, I wasn't married at this point yet, and I got completely hammered, had a DD and everything. And it was a Friday night or Saturday night. I can't remember because, I got that drunk.
It was Saturday.
It might have been Saturday. But I knew I had session later that evening, and I was the game master, and I was completely smashed. And now, I don't remember all of the details, but from what my players said, that it was fun, but I can't believe it because I can't remember it.
I couldn't do it drunk, and it's because my games are too serious, and I would end up turning it into clown shoes, and that would, I don't know if that anger them. They'd probably like it, but it just wouldn't be good for me. No. But hungover, I've done that.
That night, we went to the Bear Fest because I was with that campaign. I was with them. And
that was years ago.
I didn't know it was possible to drink yourself sober, which pissed me off, but that's besides the point. Good money down the
Conall, what did you learn from that experience?
Drink more. So anyways, so the trick is if you have a drunk DM, if you got a drunk DM, there's two options. You put rice in front of him or potatoes. And yeah, he
absorbed that alcohol.
Yeah, he did a good job. He did a really good job running that night, considering he was like fucking drunk. And
now, I am an over preparer. Like I write things out. I write out full on dialogues, and with prompt questions, or at least I used to. I don't do that so much anymore. So that night I think went off as well as it did because I had my own bullet pointed notes of if this question or something related to this question is asked, give this response. And I think that's how
did
I did
that work for you? Because I did that for you. I'd say I did that for a good decade before I finally stopped banging my head against the walls because the players would never go in the direction that I had written down.
That only works when I already, like, if they end session with a like a summons to like a king or count or whatever. The session starts with them in that room in the scene. They're already there. So that's typically how I start some sessions. Is I will start it in the place they need to start in, and then they get to ask whatever questions. Be disrespectful and get locked up if they want, whatever the case might be.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask you a question about that, because that's a pet peeve of mine that players think they can get by with.
Right. Yeah. I had one player smart off to one king, and I told him, "You're making a new character." And the player's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're making a new character." Why? Because you're getting hung on the gallows the next morning. Yeah. No. I told him your character's getting hung as an example on the gallows the next morning. And he's like, I didn't mean it. I'm like, nope, it's too late for that.
Yep.
You've already done past that line. So normally, if I know where the players are starting, typically at an information gathering location, a courtroom, a guild hall, whatever the case might be, I have the important information that I need to tell them spread out in like a rumors or question format. They ask a question or some kind of related question to whatever the topic is. They get an answer. It's not entirely like box text, but it's close. I have a rough answer of like, if this is asked, this is how I respond. And that's just to get things moving. Beyond that, it's all pretty much off the cuff. How the dice land, So
Jade has a minor case. Well, I won't say minor, but he has a what I like to call OCD when it comes to certain things, and being over prepared like a Boy Scout that he is. It doesn't
be prepared.
Yeah, when it comes to being prepared for the game, I've yet to run into any other DM that is fully prepared for like the next month's worth of gaming than Jade is. He's got all the maps, he's got the handouts. And honestly, that's probably, in my opinion, the better way to do it. I'm not that kind of DM. I try to be, but I'm really not.
So Jade, let me ask you a question based on that then. So because we're talking about what do we do? How do we prepare for players to go in random directions and so forth. One of the reasons why I stopped over preparing, and I mean, I would spend weeks on certain parts of it. Throughout a week, I would spend that entire week just to prepare for the next session. This was a long time ago, but I used to do that. And then just to find out that the players wouldn't, no matter what I tried to decide upon, like they might do this, they might do this, might do this. Nope, they did this other thing over here, and threw all of that out the window. And there were times when I was younger, again, teens, early 20s, when I'd be like, "No, you're gonna go this way because this is what I wrote out." How do you not rationalize, but how do you deal with that in your own head when they're like, you wrote all of this, and they may have touched on an edge of it, they hit that Venn diagram, and then out.
So, and take this with a grain of salt. This is how it worked for me. When I would over prepare for my game, I would prepare like weeks, months on end, just everything in the region. And if they didn't go see everything in the region, I didn't really care. Like that. Okay. That was beyond.
I did. I'd get angry.
Yeah, some game masters really do get upset by that, but. The job I was doing at the time was very dull and monotonous, so I needed something to keep my mind active and keep me awake at my desk. So I would, I'd be working and I'd be doodling and taking notes and whatnot at the same time. And that's how I prepared so much material ahead of time. That's how I prepared my entire region. So if a player asks, "Hey, what's on the next, hill over?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's this town, and here, this is what you know about it." And if they go there, they can actually go interact with the things I prepared. If they don't, well, okay, put it back into the folder and be like, "Okay, what do you want to do next? Where are we going next? You already have your prompts, you have your mission. Like, what do you want to do? How do you want to handle this?" And even if they skirt just the edge or tangent edge of the stuff I've got hidden away, that's fine. If it's something piques their interest and they want to circle back to it at a later date, I still have it. I don't throw it away. And that's actually why I moved to the digital era of gaming. I moved a lot of my notes to cloud-based storage, because it's all there and it doesn't get deleted, or at least it didn't used to. There are problems.
you just jogged my memory of something else that I learned, and that's so one of the things I do during, again, I'm going to use the term session zero, even though it gives some people a heart attack. I don't care. But the initial sit down meeting of the game and making characters, I'll explain that. Hey, I will always have 3, 4, 5. It depends on what's going on. Things that you can do at this time that I'm prepared for, either through notes or the area and whatever. I mean, I don't over prepare like, oh my God, I got to have all this. It's just, I'm going to have a few things that you can do based on your level. It's up to you to take the hooks. If you're just very adamant that you're not going to do that, well, that's on you. Don't sit here and be like, I don't know what we're supposed to do right now. I put the information out there. Maybe you need to talk to some more people. Maybe you need to go wander, whatever. But I'm not going to handhold you in that regard. A good player, and I say this, a good player will pick up one of the hooks. If there are 4, we'll say 4. If there are 4 of them out there and you can't figure out which one of them, we don't like any of them. Well, I don't care what you like. These are what's available out here. You can rescue the cat from the tree. You can kill the rats in the basement. You can deliver a message from here to there. Or obviously, I'm talking low level. So, but you get what I'm saying. Well, we don't want to do that. What do you want to do? I want to sit at the bar and drink. Okay, you sit at the bar and drink, and apparently you didn't want to actually be an adventurer. You know what I'm saying? But I will actually say that a good player will pick up the hooks. Now, if I'm not putting down good enough hooks, that's something I've got to work. And that's another thing that I started to do is instead of plotting out every little thing, is I just said, these are the 3, 4, 5 things I'm going to have ready for them to go. I don't care if they're in the wilderness. I can make it happen in the wilderness. I don't care if they're, in a dungeon. I don't care if they're in a city. I can make whatever's going on here available to them anywhere. Somehow they might have to move for it, but you get what I'm saying. Like I'll have those hooks available. So and based on what you said, if I don't plan, I used to try to anyway. I don't plan out what's next to them. I use hex crawls now. Like I don't know what's in this area. Let's find out. And I love Forbidden Lands for that. Forbidden Lands as a modern game is so freaking amazing when it comes to that hex crawl because I don't have to plan what's in the next hex. Let's just roll and find out. It could be another adventure zone. It could be absolutely nothing. We could have a whole side adventure right now because you tripped and broke your ankle and you went by yourself and you're screaming, help, help,
I was thinking about what you said about board games. And
Yeah.
I actually have, I might have stole this from you. To be honest, Jade, I might have stole this from you. Not the deck of cards, but the idea was, the bunch of players came to me as like, can we just kind of a light night? We're not exactly just one reason, some of my players were having a light night and didn't want to get into anything serious because the next part of what I was planning was going to be serious. I need a full table.
Was that organic to your adventure? I hate your players. I'm just telling you, I hate your players, man. Every time you talk about these players, like you have to cater to them. Drives me crazy.
Well, they pay me, and I try to be.
I don't care. They pay you for what you got, not what they want.
There is a
I'm
card
done
game that 3.5 produced called 3 Dragon Annie, which it is a mechanic that you can use in your sessions and in your campaign. So if one of them says that, or if I need a full table and one of them can't make it because life is life, I will say, okay, well, the local tavern or whatever is having a poker tournament. Who wants to play? Oh, poker, cards? Yeah. And I'll pull out chips because at the game shop they have poker chips. And we will play 3 Dragon Annie. And whatever they win from the poker tournament, their character keeps. I'll use the bluff skill. I will use the gambling profession if they have it.
You involve all the players with that?
Yeah. Anybody who wants to play. Yeah.
That works if you're already in town, but if you're in the middle of a dungeon crawl and your players go, hey, can we have a light night? The answer is going to be
no
light night, and I will see you next week.
Yeah,
I'll make it light. I'll just make the combat extra quick for you.
Yeah, everybody makes new characters. But no, if they're in town, that's perfect. That's probably how I should have worded it. If they're in town or they're between and before the next big thing is going to go, and I got a player that doesn't show up, or for whatever reason, I will poker night.
I think what's weird about this, Conall, for me, is I've played all over the world, and I've never run into these situations that you talk about.
Illinois is a weird group of people. It produces Bruce. For any other reason, just go with that.
I played in Illinois too, not much, but I did play a little bit in Illinois as well, and I still didn't run into that. It was like
you played with better players.
Max, I think it might be an age thing as well.
Could be.
Sure. I mean, it's just weird. He's like, if somebody come to me, can we have a light data? No, what's going on is where you guys are and what you're going to do going forward. If all you want to do is sit in a bar and pick up chicks, I'll go home because, you can role play that out in your own little fantasy. I've got things planned, or you're going to go do something, or the other thing I can do is I can make things happen around you.
And I get that.
I'll light a building on fire.
So, thinking about game development, either speaking in sessions or even long-term games, it starts somewhere, some idea that the game master has to get the ball rolling for a group. Could be even a player saying, hey, I really like this concept, but I don't know how to run it. Can you game master it? Where does that begin, and where do you start to plan your game, from that initial kernel of an idea? Like, walk me through your process of how it becomes an idea to a full-fledged game. And I'm going to start with Crafting on this because we haven't heard much from him this evening.
Sorry, I just got my dinner, and it's not just Max. I'm one of those you do not eat on stream, so I've been having my mic muted a lot.
No, that's fine. Are you able to talk on this, or?
Yeah, I'm able to talk right now. I purposely waited so I could talk.
Okay.
As for ideas for me come from literally anything and everything.
Sure.
So, excellent example is Dune, the 1980s. It's my favorite. Seeing the glowing eyes, specifically, inspired. It's been a while since I thought about this, admittedly, so it's a little fuzzy, but still, it made me think of an entire race of people that live on a planet that requires ultraviolet eyes, otherwise you'll go blind. And from there span off what was supposed to be an entire adventure of the players having to figure out how to get what they need off this world without going blind to themselves. And it all started with the Fremen have glowing eyes. And it just span off to an entire world where instead of Dune, you have to deal with ultraviolet rays, and the world itself had black plants, and there was no worms, and it just now that I think about it, that's not the best example. That's not the wildest example. I have others, but that's the one I just went with.
So you started with the idea of the glowing eyes, and you expanded out from that.
Yeah.
Did you have anything beyond that? Like what was the main enemy? Like, what was the main purpose of, the adventurers getting together to go solve what kind of problem? Like, where did it start?
It was a pirate campaign. Okay. And one of the characters, this was right after Infinity Wars, so one of the characters really, hold on a second. Sorry, allergies. Anyway, the player really, really wanted the Infinity Gauntlet. And I mean, bad. I got another player to go alongside with me, and he was tricking all the other players into finding what they thought was the Infinity Gauntlet when it was just a super rare set of jewels that the main character wanted for his personal collection, or the other character wanted for his personal collection, I should say. And that one of the gems they had to get was on that world. So they were really desperate to figure it out because they thought at the end they were going to get an Infinity Gauntlet. No, but literally what I was going to do was the main character, the guy I was talking about, I can't remember his name, was basically going to get all the jewels and take off the moment they weren't looking.
Okay. What about you, Shadow? You've been running games for quite a few number of years now, decades even. Starting from its origin point, how did you develop the game as it stands now? Like, where did it start, and how did you develop it?
Right off the bat, I always run the games I wish I could play in. This way, I know I'm as enthusiastic about it as I can be. And we were talking with James from the James Gang. When a DM is really enthusiastic, and it often comes from like starting like a new game or even a new system, they're like, "Oh, I got this new thing. Let's do it." That enthusiasm is not only infectious but keeps the game going because it's got that that element of the new shiny, but it's got something about it that the GM is at his best and firing on all cylinders. So I just like right now, Max, I invited to my AD&D game, and I'm still working on it, but the enthusiasm hasn't gone anywhere, and it's literally a water world kind of game, a high seas adventure where there's very little land, but every time you're going to make landfall, it's going to be, hopefully, kind of epic at the very least. And
Can I be a
I've
fish
always
person?
right, sure. Because I've always liked not only nautical games, but novels like Voyage of the Dawn Treader and Mysterious Island and things like that, where I could pull all these great tropes and just shove them into one easy to run campaign and get that out of my system. Because if you're playing in like a regular D&D game, you might go on a boat once or twice, and you might bump into that one or two tropey things that the GM's like, okay, I'm going to throw mermaids in and a couple other things, and that's it. You never see that stuff again. So like the pirate character is like stuck being a landlubber most of his career, which doesn't make any sense. Or you never get to try any of the new things like Druid really being able to excel out on the high seas because they have all these spells that just are begging to be used on the high seas, things like that. So, for me, I would just tell people to, play the game you want to be in, because you probably will never get to be in that game otherwise. You know what I mean? If you think about it.
And screw the players over because you'll never be in that game.
Well, I think
oh, wait, sorry. Thinking out loud.
Think about your dream game. Are you ever really going to get to be in it as a player? If you picture the greatest game you can imagine being in, do you really think you're ever going to be able to get somebody else to run it? Probably not. But
that's kind of weird. So can you clarify that? Because I guess the reason why I'm questioning this isn't because I think you're necessarily wrong. It's because I don't know what I'm getting into when I'm getting into a game. If I sit down at a table and you tell me, for example, let's pick something weird. We are going to play Star Trek, and we are going to do whatever Star Trek-y stuff. I'm going to sit here and be like, okay. And if everyone's an episode of the show, I'm going to be angry. I don't know how it's going to turn out. We could have some great space battles. We might have some hijinks on a planet. I might fall into a stupid temple, lose my mind, and become a Native American. Who knows? But, my point is, like, I don't know if it's going to be the greatest game ever. I don't want to know. I don't want to know beforehand, like, oh, we are going to play in this time period and we're doing a war against the Tholians. Like, oh, so it's just a war against Tholians? Like, can we just roll a die and see who wins that one and move on? You see, I'm not busting your balls. What I'm just saying, though, is like, I don't know how you can know going in that it's not going to be the greatest game or isn't going to be the greatest game.
It is maybe the genre or something like that you really want to be in, that you're nobody else is probably going to want to run, like you said, the Tholian web game. But if that's your dream game,
okay, fair.
You know what I mean? That's what I try to run, is the things that I really wish somebody else would like see the game that I'm running and then go, oh my gosh, I want to do that too. And then maybe I'll get to be in that game. So it's a little self-serving, hoping that people will be inspired from something I do, so that later on down the road, maybe someone will make an entire, game world based on something similar or something like that, so that there's a chance that we could be in something that's that kind of vastly different. Because
I mean, some of the best games I've been in personally were games that I was just kind of there. Okay, I'll just be there. I'm supporting my friend. I want to try this new game. Then all of a sudden, I got really interested in it. Champions being one, surprisingly, of all games. I mean, the Rifts game that Bob ran, even though he annoyed the hell. I mean, he finally did too many things to my character that made it unfun. But like some of those things, I went into the game not even wanting to like it and came out of it like, this was actually pretty dang good. This is gonna be one I remember for the rest of my life.
Like when I was in Crafty's Conan game, I just went in there to see what the mechanics were about. See what I played with people I'd never played with before, and under a GM I'd never played with. And Crafty made that game. It was only a one shot, but it was one of the best games I've ever been in. And it had a whole bunch of, random elements that did turn it into one of the best experiences. But I'd rather kind of hedge my bet and at least start with like a genre or a theme or a premise that I really want to experience. And if I can't do it as a player, at least I can do it as the GM and kind of live through it vicariously.
I agree with that concept. I mean, I would love to find somebody to run a Dresden Files campaign, not using the Fate system, but Dresden Files for a system that would play. And honestly, I would only trust another person who knows these series as well as I do to be that DM. Mainly the guy, over over there, or maybe Kai.
I don't mean to interrupt.
You could probably do it with Powered by the Apocalypse, or you could also probably do it in Easy D6 or the new Crown and Skull.
If my knowledge of
Palladium would work real well as well.
I was about to say, from my knowledge. Yeah, I was about to say, from what I've been hearing about.
Right, crafting?
Sorry.
Beyond the Supernatural First Edition.
Exactly. Beyond the Supernatural is exactly what I was thinking. You'd have to insert your own spells because they still haven't made a spell book for it yet.
First edition has it all, and it's
still
I know we're off topic, but the concept of magic in Dresden Files is very nebulous. It's not. There are no like actual rote spells or spells as D&D might call them. They're very nebulous, and it's more like you describe the effect you want to have happen, and you feed it enough power to make it happen. And that's why I think Powered by the Apocalypse actually might be a good system for that. But anyway, that's off topic.
I was agreeing with Shadow. Those are it would be a fantastic it doesn't have to be 100% like Dresden Files because I know you wouldn't run it that way. But if somebody ran that world, I'd fucking fall all over it because I just love that world love that world. And anyway, but that has really nothing to do with today's topic. Well, it kind of does because you asked.
I mean, it's a caveat on what Shadow said. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm gonna move this to Max. So Max, when you are developing your longer run games, the full picture of game, where do you start? Like, what is the initial idea, and how do you expand upon that idea? Can you kind of walk us through your process on that?
I think it's because I have an overactive imagination. And I'm not saying that like as I'm great. I'm saying like, no, seriously, I think I have an overactive imagination sometimes. Or at least I used to. I'd get a lot of inspiration from books and from movies and say that I can do this better because, I'm better than Steven Spielberg. I don't know, I would look at something and be like, man, that'd been great if it would have gone in this direction or do something differently. So I'll take considerations like that. But most of the time, what I do is I'll look at something. I'll say, for me, what is something that can be a hook for the players in the world that I can drive them to want to investigate it? One of them that I used one time is I started the campaign and I insisted there are no undead. So you cannot play a necromancer. You turn undead ability. Sorry, clerics. It's not going to be something that you need. We'll figure something out as time goes on. Obviously, I still play with the old idea that it affects demons and so forth as well. So, but I drilled that into them. No undead, no undead, no undead, no undead until there were.
I did the same thing. Oh my
And-
god, that's so funny.
And the thing was, I waited until they were higher. This isn't like, okay, I waited 2 adventures. No, they were higher level. And by higher, I mean they were like 4th or 5th level. So I had built this world up. They had been working with, the typical bandits. They'd been killing orcs. They'd done a couple dungeon, whatever, right? And then all of a sudden, somebody cried. Oh, and I always kept rumors in there about zombies. Like, don't do this. The zombies will come. And of course, they'll be, oh, there's undead. And it never happened. And they even started teasing some of those concepts, like, oh, if you do this, the juju zombie will bite off your head. Oh, yeah. Right. They almost treated it like an atheist towards religion. And that's exactly what I wanted. So all of a sudden, it was they were going in this little hamlet area, and there's like, the dead come out at night and steal the young. All right, the dead don't come out at night and steal the young. Let's find out what's really happening. Until they got attacked by, I think it was a ghast was the first thing that attacked them. So it wasn't something like really nice. It was something that could actually hurt them. It wasn't like a zombie just go, ah. And they're like, what the hell? They wouldn't believe it was a ghast. They were like, what was that thing? We got to figure out what that was. Because I was still going like, look, guys, still treating it like there are no undead in the world. You've never seen them. You never heard them. There's no books. There's no knowledge on them other than stories. I mean, whatever you would find in the real world about vampires, that's what's about vampire. Just like that. So it could be Dracula. It could be Anne Rice. It could be whatever you want to instill in this, right? And then there were. But the idea was, they're like, holy crap, we know this is an undead. That's Jim from down the road. What happened and what's causing this? And then from there, just expanded out. Why did this happen? Well, it's because of this. Well, how did that get into place? Well, it's because of this, and it slowly just kind of ventured out into something bigger. And like I said, since I do timeline type stuff, if they'd been like, we ignore the ghast. We ignore the zombies, the skeletons, whatever. They would have just started overpopulating. They wouldn't have been able to get away from them. But because they did decide to go run that down, they didn't stop it. Now at this point, undead were in the world and they were going to stay. But they curbed we'll call it the mass creation of them, because they stopped what was actually causing the initial problem around graveyards and so forth. I don't want to spill too much because I don't remember a lot of it. But what they found out is that there were some evil priests. What do you mean the evil gods are back? There weren't evil gods. The hell is that? Jesus balls, man.
I hear.
Did you hear it?
Yeah, I heard it.
The shadows are coming for you, Matt.
Yeah, it's my cats. No, my cats are acting weird. I apologize. If you guys can hear that, that sucks. I'm sorry. So it was some evil priests. What do you mean evil priests? There aren't evil gods. Well, guess what? There are evil gods now. And again, it's just Hungar's been sending me messages on Discord. Like, I love you too, Hungar. You're my baby. But then, okay, where'd the evil priest? How did they find out about the evil gods? And as long as the campaign went on, I could keep expanding on them. They could go whatever direction they wanted. Like again, we don't care about evil priests, whatever. Evil gods are back. Let's go figure someone out. No, they had actually somebody in the group who wanted, like, hey, I want to find out more about the evil priests. I'm like, you want to become one, don't you? I'm not saying that, but he wanted to express. I'm like, okay, just know you're gonna become an NPC if you do that. But that's the thing is everything. If you start small, I've talked about this a lot in my streams. I'm starting off and I'm thinking, I love the idea in this novel, but the Avatar trilogy isn't for, level 3 characters. And I like to do lower level games. If we can do, let's start with the whole orc hordes. The orc hordes are attacking, kind of like the Dragonlance thing with the Draconians. They used a different creature, but let's just say it's orcs for the purposes of the conversation here. Well, what drove those orcs out there? Oh, the orcs were driven out because the ogres got pushed out. Well, what pushed the ogres out? Well, the giants moved in. Well, why the hell did the giants move in? Because the dragons decided to say we own this, and then whatever. It's the bigger fish eating the littler fish every time. Going on, and you can make a campaign go on for years by continuing to do that. Oh, in the end, it was the demons trying to come back to Earth that were pushing out the dragons that were pushing. You see what I'm saying? Like, you can make all of that happen and build amazing dungeon crawls, amazing wilderness adventures, some great mass combat. You can have good politics. You can have all of that. Well, we don't believe that the evil priests exist, so we think that you're the problem and you're an omen, and we're going to hunt you down. Whatever. You can add all types, especially when it comes to religion, man. People keep thinking that players are so rational and they have all the answers. Nobody's rational in the face of religion and superstition. Now, I'm not saying that religion's bad. I'm not pointing at that. But what I'm saying, and especially in a world that has magic, in a world that has miracles, where the evil eye could be a real thing, people are going to, you're an omen. You wore blue. Blue is the sign of evil. Well, you came here and you brought, it rained today and we weren't expecting rain. That is the sign of evil. We have to do something about that, So that's I know your question was, how do you start this stuff? How you make it move on? But again, it's that overactive imagination where it's like, I look at something that happened in a book and say, ooh, that's a great way to start a campaign or to make the umbrella for the campaign. And then let's see where it pushes out from there.
Awesome. That's actually a really great response. Thank you for that.
I'd like to slightly alter my previous statement, which is Max put it in much better words than I could. I have an overactive imagination. He just, sorry to steal your thunder, Max, but literally you put it in perfect words.
We're all gamers, man. There's no thunder to steal. You can have some of it. You can go boom, boom, boom too.
Conall here, steals ideas from me all the time. So,
That was awesome. Just for the record, Max, now that you've hit the big 5-0, that chick goes out the window.
What goes out the window?
The overactive imagination.
Damn it! I know some would say that happened to me in my 30s, but let's.
So, Conall, how about you? Now, I know you run a lot of module play, a lot of adventure paths from Paizo. When you have run your own games, your own homebrew stuff, where did you start, and how did you expand beyond your starting point?
The few ones that are homebrew, I mean, hell, you were there for the first one, and that was just a hot freaking mess because I was just way nicer to the players than I should have been. But when I get ideas, when I'm wanting to do my own role, and I have ran a few of my own homebrews here recently, especially the Dresden ones. If something about the world or the novel or the movie or whatever grabs my attention, it's like, ooh, as Max says, how can I make that better? I just got done watching a CW show, Gotham Knights, where Batman gets knocked off. I mean, spoilers, Batman dies. And I'm thinking, okay, how could I turn that into a campaign? It wouldn't be what if somebody killed the main paladin of a small, not a large city, but a city? Who's going to take his place? And would the players be interested in, sometimes it takes 5 people to do one person's job because that one person was able to do it so well. So I will look at that. It's like, can I turn this into a campaign? Do I have players who would be interested in maybe playing a vigilante type superhero genre type game, or go back to fantasy? Okay, the paladin's dead or the king's dead. He needs to be replaced, or a new one needs to be brought from a faraway place, like within history. When a king died, one of his sons was like somewhere else in the world, and they would have to grab him and bring him back to the kingdom so he can become the new king. And how can you turn that into a campaign? Okay, the guy dies. You get the players, is like, here's a kingmaker type game that we could run. One of you guys could be the new king or whatever. And I will just build upon that. I will do like literally months reading into it and writing down notes and ideas before I even present it to anybody. Because
really, wow.
Oh yeah, I've been sitting on a few homebrew ones.
I've seen him do it.
I mean, is it months because you need months to? And this isn't a dig. I'm asking. Because you need months to get it fleshed out, or months just because it takes that long to get the players involved to finish up what other people are doing, yada yada.
If a little bit A, a little bit B for the players, but really, if I would have a superpower, it's research. I want to have everything laid out. I want to have, okay, this is going to take place in an island that looks like Ireland. I have the map drawn out, or I'll.
What if they don't go there?
That's where they'll start.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's where, and I'll just take it from there. George R.R. Martin, Game of Thrones series. I use him as a literal hero, but I like the idea that he did years and years of research on the War of the Roses before he even sat down to write the first page for the Game of Thrones series. And I'm that way when I want to do homebrew because I ran shit homebrew games. I'll be the first one to it. My first couple were pure, unadulterated shit. And I do not want to I don't want to embarrass myself like that again. So I will do the research.
The internet's eternal.
I was being
don't worry,
polite.
we clipped it.
I
was being polite.
The best thing you could be, honestly, the best thing, in my opinion, for a DM is to be honest about himself, and realize where his strengths and his flaws are. I knew where my flaws were in the very beginning, and I've been trying to build them up.
Playing role-playing games?
What? And role-playing games, yes.
Nothing?
Yeah, right. Yes. Knock. Anyways, so I will do research. I will have notebooks, pictures, whatever, joining into the digital world with Jade, where I'll have all my research here. Like I am finally ready to run for Table Breakers. Eventually, I'll be doing another one. Well, I'm doing another homebrew, and so I want to for a one shot. I'm going to make sure everything is in place, so I give a better outing than the time before.
Jade, you said something earlier that made me think about this, and I'm glad Conall just said something that reminded me because I didn't write it down. One of the things I'll do in my game is player investment, right? I have a video on this. I don't know how old it is, probably a couple years old now, but Heathen Dog and I talked about this. One of the things I love for players to do, and this is mixed bag. Some are good, some are not so good at this, but come up with your own wives' tales. The easiest example is like the pot of gold under a rainbow. Is it real or is it not? Who knows? Do you want to investigate it? Do you not want to? I don't want to just use the ones that are on Earth. I want you to come up with your own. Come up with things that is a sort of wives' tale or sort of rumor, so to speak, that everybody believes, like, oh, look, there's a rainbow. There must be a pot of gold underneath it. You want to go find out? Oh, there's no pot of gold underneath it. And I almost make it a 50-50 chance that it's real or not. But let them come up. Short-term. My long-term, short-term. What did you say? What was I responding to? No. Oh, yeah, my long-term, my short-term. But have them come up with some sort of not investment, but addition to the game to some degree, and I'll let them go on a side quest. I love it when little side quests like that pop up because then I'm not always having to think forward, and it might give me an extra week to think about what I'm doing next time or something. One of the favorite stories we talk about is something that was totally random on the side, is the one where we lost one character and Heathen Dog cut the rope. We've told it a million times, doesn't matter, I can tell it some other time, but 100% of that, from the second it started to the second that session ended, was all not what I had planned. It started off with Garthon within 2 seconds of starting the adventure saying, I'm going up to a horse going, here, horsey, horsey, horsey. And when it puts its face towards the apple, I go boop with my stick. And then the swordmaster going over there, I'm skipping some parts. Garthon, what are you doing? Here, Skrangy, Skrangy, Skrangy. Skrang are lizard men from Earthdawn. And the guy goes to put his hand on, he goes, boop. And so the dude goes, what? Ice Mac. I said, is that what you do? And I don't do that anymore, but I said that back then. Is that what you do? He said, yes. I said, roll damage. He's like, no, I didn't mean to hit him with full strength. I said, dude, you intone full strength. And I said, is that what you do? And he said, yes. And he laid out Garthon's character, and people saw it. And from there, the entire session just went sideways, and it was great. It's one we tell constantly, and it was totally unscripted. Totally, I didn't have to do anything. And it actually helped me for the next week because it gave me time to think about things to do for next week that like I can incorporate this or I should try that. So didn't mean to derail that, but you said something earlier about player investment, and absolutely, I want my players to help. As long as I don't trust them. I don't trust players. They're always like, yes, there's a rumor of a +5 Holy Avenger in my backyard. Shut up. But that's what they'll try to do if you give them that inch, they'll take a mile. But you can still facilitate that into your game. Let them come up with rumors. Let them come up with I like the wives' tales idea, and then maybe it's true, maybe it's not. It doesn't have to be true just because they came up with it. But wouldn't it be fantastic if one time, what is this? We're watering the horses, and I see glint over there. What is it? Looks like gold, and there's a rainbow coming from it. Now, if they sit back like, this is weird, when the rainbow goes away, so does the gold. What? Ah, crap. You had your chance, but you don't know. You see what I'm saying? Like, there are fun things you can do with that to incorporate the players.
I'm definitely going to be doing something similar to that in my Bronze Era game, because the Bronze Age game is going to run on a lot of myths and legends. A lot of the wives' tales come from factual things that may have happened at one point in time. Because there's a seed of truth in every story, or so the adage goes. So a lot of those like wives' tales in Bronze Era, like they're warnings typically, like don't wash your hands before dinner because you never know if whatever you're doing in the day might kill you, with whatever's on your hands or whatever. Bad example, but but a lot of those wives' tales were in many cases warnings, words of wisdom to warn people not to do certain things or something bad would happen to them. The pot of gold in the rainbow was like, yeah, sure, you'll find the pot of gold, but you'll also find the leprechauns. And
you don't want to that can happen.
You don't want to find the Fae, because the Fae are bad. They're not great for you. So in the last few minutes here, this question is about moving the camera. It's driving elements. Like, how do you develop your driving element, your main driving force of a session or even a campaign for your players? And how do you move that camera from scene to scene? And I guess, when do you decide when the scene is over? For this one, I'm going to start with Conall. I haven't started with you in a while, so how do you decide what your driving force is, and how do you move the camera?
He should move his mute button. Come on, you can do it. There you go.
There you go.
I'm sorry about that. Moving the camera, it's kind of weird. That's kind of a weird way to put it. I get the question. That's not a weird way. That's just not the way I would think of it. It depends on what's going on in that scene, or what's going on in that chapter, or whatever is going on. It's if the players, of course, finish what they need to do. Yeah, you move the camera until whatever. But sometimes it's okay, in my opinion, that they just got done through a huge fight. The players are kind of burnt, just because of how serious the fight was, or the riddle, or whatever. And I will move the camera or I'll not change the scene, but I will tell the players how to put this. I'm trying to find the right way to. Can you circle back to me? I have an answer.
Sure, I'll circle back to you.
Well, actually, Jade, can you give an example of what you're talking about here?
Yeah,
I'm partially confused also.
Yeah, so what I mean by driving element or driving force is, I know that in one of my more modern games, I had a force moving in the background, and they were doing things. And what they were doing is they were systematically killing and breaking the anchors of reality. And the anchors of reality were living beings because of something that happened so far in the past. So because the driving force was this being that was also an anchor of reality, because they were tired of living for so terribly long. They were once immortal who have now lived for over 14,000 years, and they're just tired. They want an end. But they can't have an end until all is ended. So they are moving in the background, killing the anchors of reality as best they can, because they're all pretty much a match for one another. Once they've succeeded, it starts the ball rolling. And things start happening, and those things drive the players towards that goal or towards that conclusion, because they were set on a path by people who were the anchors of reality. They were given basically missions, and what had happened was the anchors of reality, the individuals, sent out feelers to figure out like who could possibly take up the anchor that is about to die. They'd gotten some knowledge or some pre-knowledge. And they're like, okay, so let's bring in adventurers. Let's start vetting people who might be able to take up this anchor when this happens. And the adventurers herring off on their own grand adventure, none the wiser to the moving forces of the universe that are happening in the background, until they come up face to face with one of those powers, who, to the power that they are facing, the players are so far beneath their notice that they're like, I could kill you, but you're not worth my time. And then the being leaves. And the players are completely powerless to stop them at that point, because that being is so far beyond their power. So it's their first face-to-face encounter with the big bad thing moving in the world. That is my driving force. That is typically how I develop my driving forces for the entire campaign, is these huge nebulous things that are moving in the background until they're no longer nebulous. They have a face, they have a name, and you've come face to face with it. And you are either, one, terrified out of your mind, like, oh, this guy could end me with a thought, or I'm going to gain power and I'm going to put you in the ground, which is actually what the NPC wanted. So that is kind of what I mean. Like, how do you develop your driving force, the thing that moves the players towards either your original like conceived idea, or moves the players, or gets the players to want to move. Like that is what I am meaning. So Conall, like I said, I'm going to give you some time to think on that. Shadow, let's throw this one to you.
My driving force is the players, their wants and desires, because without them, there's no game, and I might as well just write novels, which, probably not going to do. So we kind of talked about this earlier. You can't, you can lead a player character to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, I can make them really, really thirsty along the way.
Okay. Tell me how. How do you do that?
What do they want? Okay, let's just talk, make it as easy as possible. A magic user. What's a magic user want? They want more spells. They literally want every spell in the book. They want that in their book. Well, I'm going to keep dropping hints where the spells that they want but can't find, like in the town and stuff. You ever been in a game where you're trying to buy some spells for your magic user, but all the really good ones nobody has, like teleport and, things like that. Your GM's like, no, I don't want you to have teleport. Well, where do I find teleport? Well, it just so happens the last known magic user who had teleport was way off over there, and he disappeared, but he
teleported into the side of a mountain.
But you get my point. Whatever I can guarantee they want, that's the bait. That's what I'm going to dangle in front of them. And it's as simple as that. And then we'll see what happens. Like you were talking about your big, sort of kind of like almost like an end of the world sort of epic story. Well, I might get there, but I'm not going to plan on it, because there's so many times the players are just going to be like, oh, guess what? I'm getting married. Guess what? I'm moving away. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to give them the best bait and adventure that they deserve for their level, for their commitment to the game as it progresses. Because I never know when they're going to leave. I've had players literally die and never going to play with that
Tell
guy
them to
again.
get back at the table. You got a Ouija board.
You should see it.
Not only no, but hell no. No.
I will
no.
seance your ass back here.
No. Hell no.
You haven't heard about the radio show I'm on, have you, Max?
I know of it, but I haven't watched it. No.
Okay.
So
I know the paranormal stuff. Yeah.
So your answer is to dangle the things they want in front of them to get them to move.
Yep. And not only dangle it, but make them need it. Give them,
Okay.
maybe there's, some way I can work it where not only do they already want it, but it would be really handy if they could, get it to save the princess or to rescue this or, to cure the famine or whatever's going on. Give them a couple of, probably not more than 2 or 3, because then it's like obvious, I'm trying to drag them along. But, it just so happens that there's like, you want it, and there's a really good use for it once you get it that would make you a big damn hero. And, a lot of times the whole party will go on that quest with the wizard to help him get his thing. And then later on, maybe it's the archer's turn because the mythic bow of blah, blah, blah is over there. And wouldn't it be great if our archer had the greatest bow of legend? Let's go do that now. So that the players will actually, help that one character because they know, especially in the old games, when your wizard, you're banking on your wizard to make it to the big time someday because someday he's going to be, your artillery piece, or he's going to be making magic items because the stingy ass GM isn't handing them out. He's
Hey, that's my time. When he comes to me, we'll talk about stingy ass GMs.
But there you have it. Just make them thirsty.
All right. So crafting, how do you, what is your driving force for your games or your players? How do you get them to want to move, or how do you move the scene or move the game along?
Similar to Shadow, but I had 2 main protagonists I like to use: Diablo the Gnome and Dave the Badger.
Okay.
This is going to be good.
Diablo, well, we'll start with Dave the Badger since he's the older character. I inherited Dave the Badger from a D&D player. Dave the Badger is the result of a druid dying and being reincarnated into his badger. Sorry, I just said it too. And then one day, because this still had 3 criticals and you kill, they went to fight the devil as part of a campaign, and Dave the Badger did a triple critical kill to the devil's nuts.
Okay.
And the DM was like, well, whoever killed Satan becomes Satan. But for some reason, Dave the Badger was allowed to keep his soul. Diablo the Gnome was years later, and Dave the Badger take a fondness of, at least the character, Dave the Badger took fondness of Diablo the Gnome because of the name, and gave Diablo the Gnome outrageous power. So both of them sit at, one is basically a tinkering god, one is the devil. And I like using them back and forth to make the players do things, because one, it's kind of hard to refuse the devil, especially if you have sin. And the other is you dangle things in front of your players because they are, he's a tinkerer. He can make things. So you're like, well, here's this fancy little item. You don't know what it does, but it was created by basically a god. Are you sure you don't want it?
Okay. I'm going to circle back to Conall, and then I will get to Max. And we're going to end on a high note, I think. So, Conall, at least that's what I think. Conall, what is your, how do you develop your driving force? What do you do to get your players to move either on their own volition or put something in front of them that they have to react to?
Kidnap.
Okay. Who and why?
If it's early days in the campaign and I just can't get the party to gel, but I need them to click certain boxes to keep the story going. Well, I'll have a Coulson moment, from the Avengers. Give them a reason to gel as a group. And you kidnap somebody's younger sister or somebody's younger brother, somebody's wife, something of that nature by gobos, whatever, low level.
My character doesn't care. I'm a loner.
Yeah, yeah, I ran into a few of those. Anyways, I'll
More than a
find
few.
a humanoid, what's the way to put it? A human instinct type thing. It's like, you can't kidnap. I have to go get my sister, even it's whatever. And the player's like, yeah, I will help you go get your sister. And by the end of it, they're working together because they want to be the big bad heroes. So I find kidnapping people, God, that sounds horrible. Kidnapping people, especially kids, be a great motivator.
Oh, please do tell more.
Wow.
Yeah, you
Wow,
want to
dude.
rephrase that with your nephew in mind.
He has a fondness for stealing the youngins.
Well, it's either that or turning them
Wow.
into pies. Take your pick.
I mean, given
you turn
his
my kid into a
Christmas
pie.
game,
We're gonna have more than just words.
I do not promote kidnapping in real life.
So-
It's bad. But in game, you have to find
Moving
one way
right
or the other
along.
to get the story going or keep going.
So my driving force is to end on a high note. So Max,
Well, was Conall done? I want to hear more about
Yeah.
kidnapping kids.
I don't.
So no, but Conall hits on
good.
a point though, and it
Yeah.
wasn't going to be my first one, but he hits on a point. Get the character of the players. This has to be a player thing. Emotionally invested. If you have good role players, that shouldn't be too hard of a thing, but get them emotionally invested into certain NPCs. I hate running like 75 NPCs, like an entire city, but they definitely need to have like 3 or 4 that they can talk to. And then have something happen to one of them, somebody who pays them constantly, somebody who bailed them out at one point when things were bad, whatever. I see what he's saying with the kidnapping thing, and I'm not necessarily against that, but you have to make it something that the players, not the characters, because it's going to be a role-playing thing, are invested in. Now, with that, I forgot what the exact question was, but I have some notes written down from what everybody said. So I am one of those game masters that keeps players poor. And when I say poor, I also tailor the combat to that. I like more mundane games. Now, Earth Dawn is definitely an exception to this because the game is it's high magic from beginning to end. Can't get away from it. You're going to start kind of meh, and you're going to turn into an anime character if we keep playing this thing. You're going to be blowing up worlds. But I like to keep them poor because I want them making decisions. Do we want to pay for this magical sword or go on the quest for this magical sword? Because you're not going to buy one like that. For a +1 sword? Or do we want to wait for the wizard to get some training and pay for his training? Or do we want the paladin or the warrior to get the +1 suit of armor, so to speak? Like maybe 2 out of the 3, but you're not going to be able to get it all. And so why do they adventure? Because they need to keep equipping themselves. Now, I don't undergear them. They're not going to be 9th level with no magic items. But the point is I also don't overgear them. You're not going to be 3rd level running around with +4 swords. It's just not going to happen in my game. I'm going to keep you at a certain level, but always have you wanting more. Now, if that doesn't motivate you, if you don't care, if you're kind of like me, where it's like, I don't care what items I have. I care to be involved in the world, and I trust the dungeon master to create combat that I can be effective in, no matter what my skills are. To use the example, kind of like how you had the motivating force. Well, do you want to be overrun by the undead? Going back to the example I did before, because that's the other option. Like, you can run away from this only for so long. Oh, the invading orc army that's coming in. How long do you think it's going to be before you can't run away from them anymore? As they're tearing down kingdom after kingdom after kingdom, or you get caught in the desert and now you have to worry about survival. Eventually they'll be there. The point is at some point you have to act because it's going to come around you. And you wouldn't be playing in this game of adventures. I won't say heroes necessarily, but even heroes, you're not going to be playing in this game of heroes and adventurers to sit around and let the world act around you. You're going to be here to act upon the world. Still, the vast majority of it is going to act around you, but you are here to act upon the world. That's why we play. So ultimately, you just put those things in front of them like, I'm scared. My character's afraid of undead. Well, that's great. There's going to be a lot more of them if you don't do something about this. You know, what else do I have? To the poor. What did I write there? Oh, I already said that, and I said all that. So that's generally what it is. I know I generalize there. If you want something more specific, I mean, I can if you want to ask it more directly on that. But that's how I keep the players going. I make sure that the world around them is constantly growing. Again, verisimilitude. The world is organic, and what they do or don't do affects. Now, I like to say I have multiple timelines. I don't sit there with with red lines going across my room here, with the timelines like that. But I know what's going on in the background. I do have a notebook. I do have notes. I do have major events planned out at certain points, depending what the characters do. Some might not be related at all to what they're working on because they didn't know what was going on, and that's a campaign branch. Do we continue finishing up what we're doing here, or do we worry about this over here, or do we try to stop this and then go over there? So I continue to have the world working around them. I let them feel as heroic as they need to be at that level. Sorry, level 1 characters are rescuing kittens from cheese and killing rats. They're not saving the freaking world. If they're doing anything major, the real armies are doing stuff and they're doing something on the side. But they are not, they're cleaning up the sewers. They're not saving the world. Starting around level 5, things get a little bit better, and when we start getting to my sweet spot is 5 to 8. Once we start getting to the 8, 9 things, that's when I start. It's not a big boss at the end, but that's when I start getting grandiose with things because I usually want the campaign to end somewhere between level 12 and 12 and 14 if we get that far. Because after that point, as we said and caused a video we made, is like to me it becomes a little tedious after that point because I really have to pay attention way more than I want to do. You can call it lazy game mastering. I'll accept that. I won't accept an experienced game mastering. With the point where it's like I just don't want to put the work in that's truly involved to continue to raise that bar. Because remember, Supernatural, somebody was talking about Supernatural the other night, and that's a perfect example. You killed Yellow Eyes, then you did some other stuff, then you killed the Leviathan. What else do you do? Oh, we now have to kill the Sister of God or whatever. Like, okay, if you elevate it too quickly, too fast, the stuff you're doing, if you've already saved the world at level 6, what are you doing at level 10? Saving the world again. No. Saving the world is the end thing. What's that?
You thought you saved the world.
Well, no, absolutely. You could do that. I mean, again, we were kind of chatting about Stargate in chat there. Okay, we ended the Goa'uld. Now we get the Ori. God, why is there always some god wanting to take over stuff? You absolutely can do that. But the point that I'm making is it's hard for players to want to go back. The adrenaline rush or the verisimilitude, the immersion needs to become greater as time goes on, not less. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I've run games that have gone beyond 20. I've run games that have gone beyond 30 and even 40 in D&D 3.5. I enjoy those games. I've even played in some of those kinds of games. And you're right, it does sometimes get tedious and it requires a lot more thought on the game master side. Like it's not just dropping monsters in for the sake of dropping monsters in. Sometimes, like, there are some monsters that are a challenge at those higher levels or those upper echelons, but sometimes it takes a personally crafted thing to truly challenge the party, and that takes time and effort on the game master's part.
The example that I use is like you play a JRPG and you're walking, all of a sudden, monster falls and you fight it. No, that's not for me. If that's for you, and I'm not talking about Jade, I'm talking about people out there, fine, do that. You can just plug and play monsters. You absolutely can. Like, why is this Yugoloth here? Who cares? Kill it. Okay. Good luck with that, by the way. But the point being is like, no, I want it to be something much more organic, where it feels like it belonged to the world. You shouldn't just stumble across a lich just going, "Hi, my name's Bob the Lich. I'm glad you found me in the woods." No, there should be something you're investigating. It should already know that you're there. It should be toying with you. It should be messing with you.
No, my lich was in one of the nightmare realms that the players had to go stop him there because he was trying to invade the mortal realm from the nightmare realm. It was quite fun. So, anyway,
Conall, you're muted. Connell's trying to yell at us about something.
I kind of want to circle back to kidnapping in a really quick way.
Oh God.
There's a certain
Characters kidnapping characters.
I was about to say, there's a certain DM that's in this panel. When we're playing a campaign of epic portions, decided to kidnap one of the NPC characters with a bunch of dancing, I can't remember what the monster's actually called off the top of my head. And we quite literally had to go to hell to get her back. So kidnapping is a good tool to use in few circumstances.
Great, now I have an Iron Maiden song stuck in my head.
Well, okay. So if you're going to run the kidnapping route, and then this is the way I do it, if you're going to run the kidnapping route, one, it's not at the beginning of the game. It's not in the first 5 levels of the game. It's not even in the first 10 levels of the game for me typically. If I'm running if I know I'm going to run a kidnapping story in the game, my players have been at the table for at least a year. They are invested in the game, in their immediate area, in their manse, whatever they might have. So I've already got them invested. That is when I start taking things. When I have the players invested in their characters and they love the world, they love everything about it, and you do anything to put one hair out of place on an NPC and they lose their shit over it, that is when I start taking NPCs from them. That is when I'm like, okay, this character really wants to have a relationship with this NPC. That's awesome. I'm going to take that NPC away, or I'm going to make that NPC gone, just flat gone, no trace. Let's see what happens. So you're right, it can work, but you really need your players invested. They have to be bought into it. They can't just be, oh yeah, I don't care. If you have those kind of players, it doesn't matter. Kidnapping, they don't care. They're just not bothered by it. We've run a little long, and I apologize. And I want to
not bad. It's probably me. Every stream I've been on this week has run long.
But I want to thank the chat. You've been amazing. Thank you very much for spending your time with us this evening. I really appreciate it. And, thank you, panel, for coming on and talking about this. I know it's one of those topics that people have said, oh, you've done something like this before. You're right. We have done stuff like this before. But I think this one is driving the point home of, there are things you can do as a game master that might fall flat. You might fail at something. That's fine. Get up and try again. And, hopefully there are some nuggets of wisdom that we talked about this evening that you might be able to pick up and use and put into your toolbox. Not everything we said is going to be an A+ winner for you. Not everything we said is going to work for you. Maybe something we said has, jogged an ideal loose for you. Take it and run with it and enjoy your games, enjoy your tables, and, do what makes you happy with your game, but also keep your players happy with the game as well. Because without players, you're just shouting into the void. So, like I said, I hope everyone had a great time this evening. Max, who are you and where can they find you?
I am Max Liao from Legion of Myth. And what day is today? Wednesday? So tomorrow I'm going to be on Gaming with ADHD stream talking with Blanley Pardoe and Brent Evans, who authors of a new game that's going to be a BattleTech competitor called Land and Sea, and write a trilogy of novels. Blanley Pardoe is big in the BattleTech, much bigger in BattleTech than I even knew as far as creation and novels and so forth. I know he wrote some novels, but I'll be on with Gaming with ADHD tomorrow. People want to check out his channel. Friday will be the rando stream. I always forget what I changed the name to. The rando stream. And I already forgot the topic that we're talking about, but it's in the description. It's already up there somewhere. We'll be talking about something. And Friday we'll be starting Coriolis. Or sorry, Sunday. Jeez, I can't even get my days right here. Sunday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be covering Coriolis, starting that free league game. Coriolis, the Third Horizon science fiction game. And Heathen Dog's going to cover Lone Star. I keep wanting to say Lone Star, the whole Spaceballs thing, but it's Rich. World Book
Yes.
15, Lone Star. No, who dares give me the raspberry? And it kind of looks like a book I might like. Apparently, there are mutants in that book, and you know how I am with that. So we'll find out. But he'll talk about that on Sunday. So that's everything I've got going on for the rest of the week.
Crafting, who are you and where can they find you?
I am the Crafting Gamer, and you will find me at the Crafting Gamer channel. I am currently covering Robotech RDF Manual 2. Robotech Palladium Book 2, the RDF Manual. I also make leather crafts. I actually have a video of making one of those pouches. I just need to edit it.
Nice. Good.
Awesome. All right, Shadow, who are you and where can they find you?
It's just like it says in the title. Me and my son doing father and son gaming related aspects of the hobby, from miniature painting and crafting, game reviews, whatever, sparks our interest that comes down the pike. I'm doing a challenge to get people up off their tail feathers and actually do the stuff instead of so much of this, actually craft and paint and play and put shit together, make something out of, junk you found in the kitchen drawer, make terrain and stuff like that. And, on Saturdays we do the sci-fi chat with a different topic with a bunch of, weirdos who want to talk sci-fi instead of fantasy because, there's just not enough sci-fi out there right now, in my opinion. Other than that, I'll be hanging out with most of you guys tomorrow on Table Breakers, so I forget the topic, and then, of course, hanging out with Conall. Why don't you take it away from there?
Knowledge. Conall, who are you and where can they find you?
My name is Conall, and you can find me at the Cigar DM on YouTube. Tomorrow, as Shadow said, I will be hanging out with Jade, Bruce of Dick Division, Baron. Well, you know the crew. We'll be talking about whatever we end up talking about.
Dick Division?
Dick Division, yeah.
Yep,
well, he's
Dick's
starting an
Division.
Only Feet fan, so I'm looking forward to that. God. Anyways, so that's what my Thursday looks like. Friday, I will be doing something off the camera, playing Warhammer Fantasy. Still trying to hammer out that system. Having a lot of fun with it.
Warhammer Fantasy or Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay?
For that one, Warhammer Fantasy.
Oh, wait, like miniatures on the tabletop?
Miniatures, yeah.
Hey, which army are you picking?
It's the fancy one where it's like a campaign.
Yeah, but what army?
I'm an elf, so take it for whatever it is.
Well, I mean, I'm Bretonia. That's like elf.
So
that's human elves.
That's what I'm doing Friday. Saturday, you will find me hanging out with Bruce and that motley crew, doing his 8-hour campaign, which I look forward to every other week. And Sunday, me, Shadow, Bo, hopefully, and a few other cats will be reviewing Bo Miniatures. Bo
paints minis.
Man, I'm tired. Leave me alone. It's been a long day. I've been hanging out with you.
We need to shout that guy out as much as possible.
That dude over there, Bo Derek. What's his name?
Right. He wears a horse face. Yeah, whatever. Anyways,
minis.
yeah. We will be reviewing the 1980s classic Breakfast Club. And wondering how to turn that into a campaign is always going to be the question that I have in the back of my head. Then sometime very soon, me, Justin, and a few other people might be doing a stream where we will be reviewing people that play Skyrim.
God, sorry, I couldn't hold it back.
Yep. So,
it's like, you know what? I know my video yesterday speaks differently, but I try to stay out of the drama. Believe it or not, I create my own drama. I don't need to go antagonize and cause more. Don't even act like that's not what you're doing. You know that's what you're doing.
What? I have great love for Skyrim and people that play it.
Gracious professionalism. So,
yeah, that's what I'm about. Well,
all right.
not what you said.
As for me, You are here watching, Gatekeepers on my Tabletop Tavern. I appreciate, your viewership. And if you liked tonight's content, please make sure to hit that like button as it helps the channel. If you didn't like the content tonight, you won't offend me by hitting the dislike button. I encourage it because it still tells me information that, you either liked or disliked it. And if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to all of the channels in the video description. And we'll see you next week with a new topic on Gatekeepers. Have a great night, everyone.